All right, great. So we're talking about providing services to either national government, county government, or indeed the private sector. What's been your experience? Now, I need to state here on the outset of the conversation that tenderpreneurship has received a bit of a bad name and a bad connotation in this country. However, it is a legitimate source of business, and lots of people are tendering to various entities, both public and private, and are earning a living. After all of these entities require goods, they require services, and they require works to be done in their respective entities. So what's your tendering experience been like? Please do let me know on Twitter. The hashtag is BusinessNow, at Citizen TV Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara, and my guest today will definitely get into that, including what you do with chasing payments. That is the big bane of small businesses across the country after providing goods and services. So keep your questions and your comments coming. We'll be putting them through to my guests this afternoon, who are with me, Pauline Opiyo, who's the Acting Director General of the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. Right next to her, Marvin Tumbo, the co-founder and CEO of Scale, and he'll be telling us what that does. And we also have Senator Johnson Sakaja, now known for AGPO. How many years has it been?
Been many
since
years,
2015?
7 years, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
So we'll be taking a look at that. Those preferential the preferential tenders that have been set aside, about 30% of government tenders that are supposed to be for young people, women, and persons with disability. What's your experience been with that? So I think I'll begin with you, Senator. What's your assessment of it since 2015, and maybe just to give us a background of the amendment, what was the idea behind it, and what's been the uptake over the last 7 years?
Thanks a lot, Yvonne. Really good to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite, and good to see Pauline and my good friend Marvin, who I've known for very many years. Really, the dream we had, starting at that time with the manifesto of TNA, because that was at that time. The dream the president had, the dream we had, was economic inclusion for young people, for women, for persons living with disability. Because we realized that without empowering them economically, really you cannot have any other form of inclusion, whether it is political, social, etc. And we said the biggest problem we've had is unemployment of our young people and disengagement of our young people all across. So we said, let us create, set aside 30%, and move all procurement opportunities at the national and the county level. I brought the amendment to Parliament. It was tough. There was a lot of resistance. We went back and forth. But I thank the members of the last Parliament because we passed it, and there was a lot of hope. We tightened the law. We said that there will be a monitoring process by PPRA that should be giving a list of shame, really, every 6 months to say which entities are giving the tenders.
Yeah.
After that, we really pushed to make sure that it is not misused, such that even the bank account that you pay to, the mandatory signatories must be those young people.
Yes.
And many other safeguards that we put in. I think the uptake has not been good. There are those who have benefited, quite a number of young people, legitimate businesses. But for a big part of it, I'm very disappointed because there's not been strong goodwill, political goodwill, from all levels of government, whether it is counties, whether it is the national government. I remember recently I really pushed the chief of staff to make sure that it's part of performance contracting, but you don't see the campaign going on. You don't see accounting officers insisting on the 30%, and it's almost forgotten. I hope that that can change. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, political will. Is it also, perhaps, Marvin, in your view, lack of information, perhaps, a central portal where people can say, okay, let me come here, let me do this, before we even get to what government and other entities can do?
No, across the world, when you talk about access to opportunities, that's the first big problem, is do I know when an opportunity is published?
Yeah.
Do I know where it's published?
Yeah.
Is it across the board, or is it with the individual publications? Sometimes when you talk about newspapers, some of these guys will not buy newspapers daily just to look for opportunities. So you have access as one of the biggest problems, access to information about the opportunities as one of the leading problems why SMEs are not winning bids or even applying. So that's one aspect of it. Two is self-censorship in a way, because you have this bad name that procurement has to an extent where someone says, oh, I'm never applying for government tenders because it's a corrupt process. So that they remove themselves from the equation. And that lack of participation also has meant that other established businesses keep getting these bids. Yeah? So access is one of the biggest problems. But then just as what we've tried to do is to ensure that it's not you find 100 tenders and then you're looking for your one. It's to what extent is the system more intelligent to tell you here's an opportunity for you based on the industry that you work in, as opposed to here are a million opportunities,
and
find one,
sift through.
Find one that would work for you. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest issues, and it's not just also a Kenyan problem; it's a global problem. Where are the opportunities? How often are they published? What do they need? And access there is the first thing.
All right, we'll talk about scale in a moment. But I know you've done business with government. What's that experience been like?
No, it's terrible. First time, it was terrible. Right now, I'm slightly better at it. I remember it took us 3 years to win our first tender. Yeah? And that's 3 years where you have to survive. And I remember when we did our first tender, it was so shameful. Compile this document, and we didn't know what we were doing. You don't know where to start. The document that you're given to respond to is 200 pages already. Yeah. What's the most important thing for you to respond to? You have to figure it out within this 200-page document. If that's your first time responding to your bid, you are already out of it. Yeah. So for us, it took us 3 years of trial and error until now. The last time before we gave up, we said, okay, can you give it one more try? But in terms of why you get kicked out, it took us 3 years to learn each and every reason. And we were just taking it off. Okay, we've been kicked out because of this. Don't make that mistake. The next tender, we've been kicked out because of this. Don't make that mistake again. That's a 3-year process. Now imagine this is a young person who has just decided to do their bid today for the first time. Where do you start?
Indeed. Yeah. And we'll come and talk about some of the solutions, you know, that are out there that are being provided. Pauline, what's the role of the regulatory authority in, I guess, some of the issues that have been raised here so far?
Thank you, Yvonne. As a regulatory authority, our work is to ensure compliance with the law. We also monitor and evaluate the performance of the public procurement system. So when it comes to AGPO, which targets the disadvantaged groups, we have the role of receiving reports from the procuring entities and making a report to Parliament and to the National Treasury regarding the performance, that is the uptake, the entities that are abiding by that requirement, and the suppliers who have been awarded contracts under that scheme, and the values of the contracts that they have been awarded. We give all that information in our half-yearly reports and even our quarterly reports to the National Treasury. So when we receive information about the frustrations that the target groups go through in tendering, some of the information come to us in the form of complaints. Others, we even just read about them in the news, and we pick them up and follow up to find out exactly what happened. When they come in the form of complaints, for example, if they participate in the tenders and they don't get the feedback even regarding why they were disqualified. Sometimes even when the tenders are advertised and the advert says this one is reserved, say, for youth or for women or for persons with disability, but then the conditions given there do not really allow these particular groups to participate effectively in such a tender. So in such situations, we do come in and engage the procuring entity to make sure they change those conditions which are not really welcoming for the target groups. And then another area where we have been assisting much is when the youth, women, and persons with disabilities participate in tenders, and then once they have performed their bit of the contract and they are not paid, the complaints, in fact, many of the complaints we received as an authority are regarding the payments, very many complaints regarding payments. And we usually also engage the entities. Many times, they come up with the explanations as to why they have not paid, but we keep on pushing until we make sure they prioritize those pending bills and pay them. So that is how we have been helping. And then in terms of capacity building, even though the capacity building of these special groups is reserved for the National Treasury, but there are entities who call specifically upon us to go and train the ones they have registered, so that it is not a general training, but it is specific for a particular entity. They call the targeted suppliers that they have registered, and then we take them through how they can prepare their tenders and how they can access even financing and so forth.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. And it's sounds very detailed, and we'll come back and just ask about whether I can come to you and say, you know, I tendered for this. And to be clear, PPRA only deals with government entities, right? So both national and county.
Yes, we
just
deal with.
Who are asking.
We deal with the government entities and all persons engaged in public procurement.
Okay.
Be you a supplier, even the Wanjiku, who is the taxpayer, comes to us with issues, and we, so long as it is within our mandate, we take care of it.
Okay, all right. Marvin, let's understand, because there's, you know, when I said we're going to have this show, people said, okay, so how do I begin to tender? Yeah. Let's talk about, I think, the do's from your experience after 3 years of, you know, trying unsuccessfully and then, you know, finally getting it. What are the key things to make sure, you know, you have in your bid that then at least gets you halfway there?
To be honest, 80% of the time is just ensuring that you're ready. Every tender is almost similar, almost 80% of the time. They give you the mandatory requirements, where you need your certificate of incorporation, you need your tax compliance certificate, you need your PIN certificate. Sometimes business permit is required as part of this. Sometimes they might ask you for a CR12, which is good for beneficial ownership. CR12 and also an AGPO certificate. So in terms of mandatory requirements, more or less you're done in that area. They might ask you for financial requirements. So you're talking about audited accounts. Most of these businesses do not have their accounts audited, or
and
even accounts proper.
And the purpose of the financial, you know, evaluation is?
Yes, is to see whether you have the capacity to actually complete this job, to do this job properly. You cannot bid for a 100 million shilling contract when your account says you've dealt with 1 million contract. It's also just to showcase your capacity to be able to do the job at hand. So that's where you'll require your audited accounts, usually for 2 or 3 years. Financial statements in some instances are also required. But then now you go to the technical response. So that's just mandatory, where if you don't meet any of that criteria, you will get kicked out automatically. The next stage is a technical response, where they see what's your company profile, what does it look like, have you done work like this before? Secondly, they might ask you for similar works done, so that you can be able to compile the kinds of job that you've been able to do previously. They'll ask you for your staff and CVs. They are their CVs, again, to establish qualifications. They'll tell you, for this role, we need someone with a master's. For this role, we need someone with a PhD. For this role, we need a surveyor, an engineer, this and that. So also that must be there. And at times, which is one of the funny reasons people get kicked out, is they need you to notarize. You go to your lawyer, they stamp and say the copy you provided is actually a legal copy. If you fail to notarize, even though you provided it, you get kicked out. Most of them, they'll tell you need to serialize, to paginate your tender document. If you fail to do that, you get kicked out. So it's just to ensure that when you look at the mandatory and technical requirements, you respond to them as they have said them. And most of the time, this is work you can be able to do way beforehand to ensure just all your documents are correct. You have every single document, and now the only thing you'll have to do for every subsequent tender is just to respond to the terms of reference, which is the job at hand.
Okay.
Yep.
Some of these sound like, you know, they're very complicated and therefore more established companies and organizations, which, Senator, would be difficult for young people, women, persons with disability who are starting out, and for whom exactly AGPO was intended, but yet you look at these requirements and you're thinking, am I ever going to get these in line? And so some say that maybe still in that respect, you know, we are saying one thing, but then the requirements are still haven't caught up.
Yeah, so there are two things. There's reservations and preferences.
Okay.
And we were very deliberate. In the law, if you look at section 157, 17, we created a secretariat that is, I think it's in the wrong place. I want to amend that. It's at the National Treasury. This secretariat is possibly the only secretariat created by law that's supposed to be championing, training, and advancing AGPO. I think it should move to the ministry in charge of youth and gender issues, so they can go out there and go to those young people in Kayole, for instance, and explain to them that there's this opportunity available for you. This is how you do it, to train them and to have a campaign, because that is not going on. I remember a few years back, I did an ad in the papers and asked, under the Young Parliamentarians Association, which I chair, I asked young people who are interested in doing procurement or, you know, doing business with government to come to a hotel in Nairobi. And we thought we'd get like 300 people. There were 3,000. And serious people, it's not the normal crowd you'd mobilize politically. Like go-getters, they're thinking of ideas, they want to get in there. And it was amazing, it was overwhelming. So I think, and I'm very glad we have PPRA here, because the same law in 157 says that every 6 months, that's 157.12, each and every procuring entity should give you a report. And in that report, they should disaggregate the data and say, this is what we've given to youth of this amount. Remember, it is 30% of the value of procurement, not the number of contracts. So it is not just give them flowers and newspapers and, you know, bush clearing. No. We want people, young people have the capacity, and women have the capacity to do roads, you know, to build dams, to do proper procurement. There's a time I met some young guys at a social place, and they were bringing me money. I said, hey, what is this for? And they said, you know, we just took this up and we are supplying the Ministry of Defense, you know. They are supplying the military. So that value of procurement is not the number of contracts. And it's not just those which are reserved for youth and women. Any contract, they get preferential treatment. So 6 months, you should be getting a report from them. Thereafter, and I made it so specific, we said that the authority shall make a report to Parliament after every 6 months for consideration by the relevant committee responsible for equalization. That time I was chairing that committee, so it was deliberate, of opportunities for youth, women, and persons with disability, and the report shall contain details of procuring entities and how they've complied. I've never seen this report, you know, and it's the law. The law is not a suggestion. And that's why I'm saying the goodwill within government, when it comes to AGPO, is really wanting, and we need to put more pressure. And from where I sit as an oversight, and I'm glad you started, you know, you're in this conversation, I think there's more that we can do to put pressure on government to take this provision seriously. If you look at the number of young, disillusioned, disengaged people who have the ability, look at the budgets we're talking about, 3 trillion budget by government. Even if you just take the recurrent or some development, do 30% of a trillion, in the hands of our young people and women, will change this country. You know, so I think that goodwill is what is lacking, and that apathy, as Marvin is saying. You know, I've done many forums where you ask young people, okay, how many of you have ever applied for a contract? Very few raise their hands. And you ask them why. They say, we think it's hard, but you've not tried. Even young people must believe that it is possible. We need to showcase success stories, people like Marvin, those guys in defense, and all of those who've been able to do successful tendering, to tell people, it's possible, you can actually do it.
And I think that's the challenge, that we hear more of the I didn't get it, or I did, and I've been chasing for payments for the last 2 or 3 years. And that's what gets a lot of people thinking, well, you know, this is just not for me. On Twitter, Nyadida says, Nyadida Jr. says, it is difficult for small businesses to get the lucrative government tenders. You must have connections to get these tenders. Marvin, tell us about your connections.
Senator is one.
Not because I know him.
Not really. If you look at, and again, the apathy, that prevents him from applying for tenders. But then what we've done, we've gone through tender evaluation reports as published by PPRA. The tender evaluation reports, when you look at them, they tell you why a particular tender was not awarded. You'll be surprised at how many silly, ridiculous mistakes organizations make.
Tell us about them.
As an insurance company for a tender worth 2 billion shillings, they lost because they did not serialize, paginate the tender response.
And by serializing and paginating, that's a very fancy term for numbering every page.
Yes, numbering every page. No, that's what the law says.
Yes. No, but that's what it simply means.
Yes, it's
page
just
1,
numbering
page
every
2,
page.
page 3 till page whatever.
If you don't number the pages, that's it. That's why reason to get kicked out, because the law says so. If you do not, for instance, they ask for a bid bond for 100 days, and then you, because you're applying for the bid bond today, as opposed to when they're supposed to submit the contract, you are 10 days short. You're kicked out because the bid bond is now for 90 days as opposed to 100 days. I have seen an institution that someone left their, left their tax compliance. I think it was expiring the day after they submitted. But then now by the time they were evaluating, the tax compliance has expired. And that's, you get kicked out. You miss a document, you get kicked out. You don't, you don't notarize, you don't get your lawyers to sign or stamp a document, you get kicked off. You don't sign, you don't put your signature on the form of tender, you get kicked off. It's just the smallest, simplest things that get businesses kicked off. It's never one major thing. It's never this big corruption monster that we are fighting. It's just, and the more you participate, the more you learn, the more you just craft your, your skill improves over time. But then if you don't work on it, if you don't enter the ring, surely, So for me, the most important thing is you get in there and you try. And as I said, a lot of the work that you have to do, the heavy lifting is at the beginning. The moment you're done with that, it means the subsequent tenders, you only have to do 20% of the work or 10% just to respond to that particular tender. But if you ensure that your documents are okay, it's just simple things. And it's almost a business expertise, almost. It's just to say, okay, do I have these documents? Yes. Do I have a company profile? No, I'm going to create one today. Tomorrow, what am I going to do to make sure that I'm tender ready? I'm going to ensure that I have all my CVs in this particular format. Do all the employees, do I have certificates? Yes, here they are. It's just simple things. But then now, once you do that, you have your 80%, and then now you say, bring on the tenders.
I'm just seeing two messages that have come in. One is a young man who says he's done one to Kenya today. And he hopes he gets it as a young person. But there's another WhatsApp group here on the Makadara constituency, and you can see that the problem we have is an attitude problem. Because what Marvin has described, it's like there's a committee whose work is to knock off more than to facilitate. So the attitude within procuring entities and the procurement officers should not be to punish or to knock out or disqualify based on technicalities. Really, they should be going out. And I hope PPRA, if it's budget, you guys need to tell us. If it's, go out there, get these young people, get these women, explain to them, and train the procuring officers, within government, that their work is to be facilitative. That if they see if this tender by this group of women or young people is missing this thing, call them back.
Call them and say, get this in order.
Just get this right. And it can help you. Because when you talk about preferences, a preference means when you're scoring, this group of young people on a tender that everyone applies for, you give them maybe 15% to begin with, just because they're youth, or 30% to begin with. That is a preference. The reservation is that, okay, it's only young people and women who can tender on this, and we've only been focusing on reservations, not preferences.
I see. what's your response to the fact that, and yes, we understand it's a legal process and there are some steps that have to be followed, but that it seems in many instances it's just, you know, like we're saying, it's more punitive than anything. It's, oh, you don't have this, oh, you don't have this. Yeah. In terms of just giving information. I know you said that, you know, you train the procuring entities. Do you have any role in training me and in training our viewers today and just saying, leo tuko na kikao mali flani, and you know, come through and this is what it takes?
Okay. In terms of the role of PPRA in all this, first of all, we get a lot of those complaints that have been knocked out of the process because of this small issue, which according to me is a technicality. And we do engage the procuring entities a lot. And for the procuring entities which we have engaged, when such a complaint arises, at least they do things differently in the next tenders. For example, this issue of pagination, it has been put out of the context. I was serving in the review board when this matter was proposed by the review board members because of the issues we used to have. People would come and complain to the review board that they have been knocked out because they didn't have a particular document, say a tax compliance certificate in their tender, and they say they had it. And if you ask them, you had your own copy of the tender document, on which page of your copy is this? They can't say which page because the document is just there, it is not paginated. So it was intended to address that issue. And it was a request by the review board that let tender documents be paginated so that when somebody comes to the review board and purport that their document has been pulled out, then they can, the original is there and everything is there and it can be established whether that is true or no. But it was not supposed to be an evaluation criteria. From the very beginning, the spirit behind that, it was not supposed to be an evaluation criteria. The procuring entity is expected to note if a particular bidder has not paginated their document. They are supposed to note that this bidder has not paginated their document. Such a bidder would not have the audacity to complain and say, my document, some pages have been pulled, because you will be asked, can you quote which page?
Okay.
If you don't have pages, which page will you quote? None. So most of the entities, we have been advising them on that, and now they don't use that for evaluation. And there are also other issues which are seen as small technical issues. But for example, if a bidder fails to notarize, say the tender form, you know, the tender form is the binding document. Yeah? It is where there is the undertaking by the tenderer that I quote this. Yeah? So in the absence of that, you will not have a second person at least to be a witness to this tenderer that this is actually their document and this they quoted.
Right.
We have had such cases where they are saying this is not what I quoted, this is not what I presented. It must have been pushed in by somebody else and such things. So if it is notarized, at least the bidder, some of those things are for the benefit of the bidder. So that when somebody challenges you as a bidder, you can say, this is the form that was even notarized by my lawyer. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it helps a lot.
All right.
And just to comment on his submission about knowing somebody in government in order to get a tender, I worked as a procurement officer for a long time. That was about 11 years. And I came across cases where people would come to me and tell me, thank you very much for giving me this contract. And I asked them, which contract? Because I believe in fair competition. Yes. And this is where I was getting confessions of people saying, you know, it is my first time to get a contract in government without knowing somebody. So I think we are trying to demystify this thing, and we are working very closely with the professional body, that is Kenya Institute of Supplies Management, so that at least we make the professionals do a professional work. They don't have to be influenced in order for somebody to get a contract. But it does not stop even with the procurement officers. If there is any influence for people to get contract, in fact, the procurement officer would be the last person I would influence, because they have no powers at all. Anyway. They have no powers at all. They don't make any decision. And so this myth that you must know somebody, it is something which we must really try to tell our young people who are the beneficiaries of the AGPO, that they really don't need to know anybody. In my organization, for example, we do advertise tenders and invite young people, and we don't get we don't get what we need. Sometimes you even award the contract to a young person, and they fail you. For example, if we are doing some documents to be printed, required by the board, and then you give somebody a contract, week 1, they are not delivering. Week 2, they are not delivering. And here, the consumer is on your neck. They want this item like yesterday. So our young people and the PWDs, those ones are mostly the ones who are affected by non-delivery. And so they really have to pull up.
And maybe we need to just see what the challenges are there, you know, to sort of help them to be able to deliver. I know you want to get in some thoughts, but I really do need to take a commercial break. When we come back, we want to talk a little bit more, because we focus a lot also on procurement within government entities in the public sector, but there's also private sector. How does that fare, and how does that compare to procurement at the national level? Plus, I'm seeing quite a few of your tweets, many of you saying, okay, I have this and I have this. We'll get to all of your questions and comments in just a moment. This is Business Now. We're talking about tendering and procurement. Gotten a bad name, but it is a legitimate form of business and earning a living. What's been your experience? The hashtag is Business Now at Citizen TV Kenya. We're back in a moment.